Hi there, my name is David. Welcome to my channel. Today, what we're going to be doing is a two color form of knitting that I found from the instruction manual of the brother KH-230. And I just thought it might be a really interesting thing to do. It's quite basic to do, it's just a case of making sure you do your count. Here I am just practicing and just seeing how the colors would actually work together. So let's see how it's done, and let's have a look and practice the sample. The first thing we do is just cast on. Here I'm showing you I'm doing the cast on. This is the main color that I'm doing, and this cast on is relatively easy. It's called the E-wrap cast on, or the closed edge cast on, and this is the first thing that I do. I just want to say I've done a count of 8 needles per section, and here I am doing the main yarn. The pattern works in sections of 8 needles. So when you do this pattern, it's just working it out, how many needles you put on. So I've just kept on adding on 8 needles, and it came to about, I think, 32 needles overall. And so that's how you get your pattern working. It's always good with this pattern, you can just work from left to right, and it's quite easy to do the count. Here I am just finishing off my cast on. I'm going to do about 10 rows and just finish this off. Here I have finished the rows, and now I'm going to change the carriage levers into hold. This is basically how the pattern's going to start. It came with this little ruler, and basically it pulls one needle out and leaves 3 needles behind. So it's actually 4 needles you're working with, and it's this is how you arrange your pattern. Here I am, I'm doing the first part of it, which is where you miss 3 needles, and then the fourth needle you push forward, and with that as your guide, you bring the other needles forward to complete the setup. As you can see at the end of it, 3 needles remain, and that's how your first part of the pattern starts. What you now do is make sure that the levers on either side are put into hold, and this is the part of the pattern. So when you go to the right with one row, you must make sure that both levers are on hold. This is what it does when you put when you start the pattern off, and this is actually the main yarn. You just got to remember this is the main yarn, and this is the second part of when you do the second row. And as you can see, it doesn't actually knit that actual first row that you've done, and that's the first part of the pattern. Then what you do is you change your yarn, and then you put in the secondary yarn, and this will form the second part of your pattern, and you're going to do another 2 rows. So basically you're doing 4 rows altogether with the pattern. Here I am doing the contrast yarn, and this will form the next 2 rows. Just make sure that your lever on the left is put into knit, because you'll be knitting basically 2 rows while you actually be knitting the 1 row, and this is where you knit with the contrast yarn your first row. This is what that first row of the contrast yarn looks like. As you can see, it's knitted those needles that were in hold, and this is what forms the pattern on the other side. It's relatively easy. On the other side, you keep the lever on the right into hold, and you do a second row, which will knit all the needles together. So this forms the basis of your pattern. It's really quite easy, and you start the same process again. Here you're going to do the second part of the needles, and what you're going to do is you're going to change it slightly, the pattern. The first row of patterning you did, you missed 3 needles, and then took 1 needle into hold. But here what you're going to do is you're going to take the second needle and put that into hold, and that will form the separate part of the pattern. Here you can see taking the second needle, and this will be the second part of the pattern. This, you just need to remember that whenever you put the needles into hold, you are using the main yarn, and when you are doing the actual knitting, you will be doing a different yarn. So whenever you put the needles into this position, you need to remember that the main yarn is what you'll be working with first. Here, you got to keep it into hold, and then you start the process the same as you did with the very first row. So here is the very first row of your main yarn. As you can see, it has not knitted those needles in hold, and you make sure that your levers are in hold, so when you do the next row, you can make sure that those needles don't knit. It actually knits those needles that are in working position, but those needles that are not are in hold. Those needles that are in hold do not knit. Here I am going to change the yarn and into the contrast yarn, and this is really how this pattern works. It's very easy to do. It took me a while to kind of figure it out a little bit because of the count. So you just got to watch your count and make sure that you get the row correct. Here I'm putting the one position into knit, and this will be your first row in contrast, and then you will be doing a second row, and this will be also the contrast yarn, and that is your pattern complete. And this is how the pattern looks and how you do your pattern. This is where you've completed your pattern, and you start the process all over again, and here is where you do the fourth needle, and this is the repeat of the pattern. Well, here is the sample I did. I eventually got it right the way I wanted to. I did find yarns that were very close, had some close areas of color, and you can see it more closely here how the pattern comes out. This is basically what you might say is a slip or tuck stitch on the other side, and that's basically what you're doing. You're doing a slip or a tuck stitch, except you are using contrast yarn, and you will be looking at the other side how it works. I mean, it was really interesting how some of these blended colors worked. um, I started out right when I was practicing, but I couldn't get my tension right with the yarn. So I was just struggling a little bit. So I started doing the patterning. Then I started getting it right again, but then it was just always something with the tension. So I was constantly adjusting that and adjusting the size. And so I was kind of working on that because the two yarns were slightly different from each other. I did find that the contrast yarn was a little bit thicker than the actual other yarn, and one was softer and one was more firm. But overall, this came out really well, and I was quite pleased with the result because it looks really kind of interesting. And it kind of, somebody told me it looks like Space Invaders, but I kind of think this looks a little bit like crocodile skin, if I had to say it anything. and that's how I kind of see it. But I kind of like how the colors have worked really well together, and this is really something I would like to do again. I'm just going to practice some other samples with this machine, and just to see how it works. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I would like to say thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave a comment, and I will be looking at the next project soon. So I will see you then.